There we go. Okay, wonderful. So, and the last thing I need to check is that I am getting title and name pronounced. It's Claudio Senatore, right?
Yes, so the full surname is
Yeah.
Senatore Reso. So
Oh,
it's
okay. I'm
two, but that's not a problem.
no problem. Well, we'll go with that. Okay. So, right. I'll give us one moment. And so, hello and welcome to this European Actuary interview with Claudio Senatore Rizzo. Thank you very much, Claudio, for joining us today. Let's start with taking into account you're vice chair of the AAE's Data and AI Working Group. So, how do you view the current state of AI adoption within the profession at the moment?
So yes, indeed, I'm the vice chair, and I joined this working group, I think, around 4 years ago. And when it was definitely smaller, this working group, because 4 years ago there was, we this mega trend of ChatGPT AI was not yet there. So, and I can see, I can see the difference, also in terms of interest, between before and after, basically before the 2022 and after the 2022. So yes, it's our working group. It's definitely focused on the AI, on the adoption, but not only on the adoption of AI in the insurance world, also in terms of also of education, in terms of use cases, in terms of new issues. So we try in terms of regulation. So we try to really focus the attention on all at 360-degree, the attention on the AI. So how it has been adopted, how is going to be, how is going to be adopted, and what insurance companies are doing. So obviously from a more an actuarial perspective, although our perspective is not really always 100% actuarial. We look also to the underwriting world, we look also to different worlds that are strongly and strictly related to our actuarial world. So what we see, so we see mainly two trends, that is the AI as a tool. Okay, so the chatbot, the possibility of, I don't know, using also picture to price or to review a pricing, and this is something that is increasing. We know we have many use cases, and this is something that we see. Okay, obviously it's more something company driven. It's not really the single actuary or the actor, small group of actuaries that are adopting these tools. You always work in a highly regulated, market business, so you have to really pay attention. But this is something that we see more and more used. So in terms of AI adopted in terms of tool, a tool that is coming from, I don't know, an external software provider, or in some cases that are internally developed. But in my opinion, there is a second trend of AI that is not the tool adoption. It is the change in how do you see and how do you shape the risk, adopting new models that are coming from AI. Okay, this is conceptually different, because it's not the actuary waiting for or actively engaged in the adoption of, in trying to adopt or in the adoption of a new tool. It's the actuary as a figure that goes beyond what he studied at the university, okay, goes beyond the usual professional courses that he has to do, because we as a profession, we need to be always updated. So every year we need to gain a certain amount of credit to ensure the professionality, etc., etc. So this second trend, it's more something based on the single actor that wants to push himself beyond certain well-established models used to price, to reserve, etc., etc. In this second aspect, in this second trend, I don't see the same pace of the first one, So we need a little bit of more time, but this is a key one, because definitely AI, although AI is a highly ambiguous name, because in the AI there might be very, very different models and things, But in my opinion, it's a real opportunity also from a modeling perspective. So we as actuaries, we need to take this opportunity to view the risk from a different perspective, to be able to shape the risk in a different way, deconstruct and reconstruct the risk in different way using these models.
Well, that leads me on a little bit to the next question, because I know the AAE has been engaging with the regulators, such as the European Insurance and Occupational Pensions Authority, other stakeholders. What is the main message that you think actuaries are trying to convey to policymakers or game shapers on AI governance?
So yeah, there is let's say also there are two aspects. There is one, and we make also fun about this, but it's a real thing, So since the early discussion about the AI Act, also when the AI Act was not yet live, since we had the first occasion to read it, to go through the regulation, there were some basic observations that were basically arising from all the actuaries all over the Europe. So I remember a lot of discussion with German actuaries, but also from Sweden, also from France, that were based on one basic observation, that is the AI definition adopted in some regulation, for example, in the AI Act, is so large that to some extent it covers also really well established statistical models that we use since 30, 40 years, in insurance world, like the generalized linear models, And actuaries have been concerned from the very beginning that an additional burden of regulation on these models that are really well established would have not really helped the profession, And in fact, it's of last week, a letter from the EIOPA, where the EIOPA is clearly stating that, in an opinion, and we really we stay on the EIOPA side, absolutely on that, in an opinion, some statistical models that are really well known, like the GLMs, like the GAMs, should not really be considered in the AI Act. For several reasons. The first, that they are already regulated by many regulations, Solvency II, GDPR, so they are already regulating these models. And the second is that they are statistically completely different. Although in the definition of AI Act, of AI in the AI Act, they are in the AI world. Okay, this does not mean that they are even comparable with the complexity of LLMs or similar models, And this is something that we see, observe. So we study regulation, and we try to, with our notes, with our papers, discussing with the regulators. We are actively engaged with the EIOPA today. Three of us, me, ESCO, Kivisari, and Jonas Hertz, we are actively engaged with the EIOPA in a working group on data and AI, and we are writing in a paper. And for us, all these are occasion to start or revitalize a discussion about this subject, And this about GLMs of the GAM, it's an example of discussion that we had with the EIOPA, but not only with the EIOPA, something else that we like to do, and you have an example from last week, is also to to other professions, how do they are dealing with AI. Last week, we did a webinar together with the colleagues from the European Space Agency and the European regulator on pharmaceutical industries, and it was really, really nice because we had the occasion to see how do they are dealing with the AI, what they are doing in terms of obviously of profession, for AI, how is the adoption rate in their profession, and this was a very nice occasion to learn from them, to see, to benchmark ourselves, I mean, as actors, as actuarial profession, So this is what we are trying to do, in our opinion, the discussion, the debate, it's always something positive. You have to learn, and obviously others can learn from you, and you can frame maybe a certain issue in a different way. So this is what we try to do. Actively engage regulators, industry, academia. Soon we'll have also a webinar with the academia. So we try to bring this subject together and discuss about AI governance. And the AI governance example, it's just that I did before about the GLMs. It's one of the examples.
Well, you mentioned other sectors and what you can learn. So my next question might feed into that, which is how should responsibility be divided between actuaries, data scientists, and the management when it comes to model outcomes?
That's a $1 million question, Jens. So it's a tough one, So we have a discussion also about that, because there is a discussion about who should be responsible about that, and what we are discussing. We are internally doing research about that, if, for example, could be the actuarial function responsible for the AI models, for the risk of the AI models, so how to compute this risk, how to monitor them, who should be legally responsible for that. Should be the chief data officer, should be the chief information officer, should be the chief actuary, or the legal person in charge of the actuarial function. So this is an ongoing discussion. If you ask me, so my personal view, is that in my opinion, the AI is an opportunity for the actuary. It's an opportunity to enlarge the responsibilities, and we as a profession, we are really, really well equipped, to do that, because we are we know how to deal with risk, regardless if you are talking about risk of a reserving model, risk coming from, I don't know, solvency reserves, or risk coming from pure operational risk, So we are used to deal with the operational risk, and the AI to some extent can be framed as an operational risk, as today, some risks of the AI are basically cyber risks, So that's the point. So and who should be responsible? That's a debate. That's a discussion. In my opinion, what I can tell you is that we should see, we as actuaries, we should see this as an opportunity to expand our responsibilities, because we are well equipped to do that. That's the point. Obviously, this brings pros and cons. The cons is that you have the burden of work, of responsibility is increasing, but you have also the pros that the exposure of you as an actuary within a company is increasing, and obviously also the relative how to say, it's not just a matter of responsibility, it's also a matter of expanding your influence, that's the point. So if it increases the exposure, you are expanding also your influence within the company. So this is, in my opinion, this is nothing than positive.
And do you think the current actuarial standards are providing sufficient guidance in this AI world, or is there need for new professional standards at European level, or do we need to be thinking about things differently?
So what we did an extensive research about standards, guidelines, you know, so how the actuarial societies at European level, at world level are behaving with respect to that, you know. So, and from our research, we saw that some of the European and world level actuarial societies have already updated their guidelines, you know, their code of conduct and their guidelines. With respect to the AI, is not that easy, to be honest, for several reasons. Among them, the first, for sure, is the speed to which the AI is evolving. You know, so it's not easy to adapt, to update the code of conduct, the guidelines with respect of the professional, how to deal with these models, how to do what to do, etc., because it's evolving so fast, so quickly that, you know, in 1 week, I don't want to say in 1 day, but in 1 week, 1 month, they might be old, you know. So for that reason, what we are doing, we are obviously introducing in the guidelines, in every guideline of the European society everywhere in the world, in the code of conduct, you have such so high principles that they are already covering the AI. So this is not a risk. Okay, so you have so high principle with so strict ethical, moral, and professional standards that the AI and the relative risks are already covered there. You know, so that's not an issue. What we are doing is, okay, we are principally, from a principal perspective, we are covered, but in our opinion, it's not enough, because we want to always, you know, try to raise the standards. So what we did, we some countries already did it, some are still doing that. You know, we want to update also the guidelines, so to provide practical examples, practical a practical way, so how to deal with the AI to the actuaries. So some societies and also the European Actuarial Association is providing more details in the guidelines. Okay, guidelines that are easier to update, because the code of conduct in some countries it's a legal document. You know, so you have to present it to the ministry, you know, and the ministry has to approve it or not, because you are formally a profession, you know, with certain duty in front of the society, etc., etc. So the code of conduct in some cases it's difficult to update, more difficult, you know. The guidelines is a less formal document that you can view and review in a quicker way, you know, or maybe also more often. And so there you have, in my opinion, more space, you know, to do things. And some countries already updated the guidelines, introducing clear AI principles, or let's say guidelines for AI-related stuffs.
Well, let's take one specific thing, which is explainability. That's something that is increasingly prioritized. In your view, what realistic levels of explainability are there when we talk about these complex machine learning models in insurance?
So explainability is definitely a key subject. We, as European Actuarial Association, we devoted an entire paper to the explainability, and we touched the same subject also in a previous paper. I'm talking about something like 2 years ago, I think, and we did also a webinar on explainability. You know, because it's definitely key. You know, explainability opened a completely new research field. You know, so here we are talking about not just some charts that are used to try to understand models. Here we are talking about thousands of researchers that are working on that. You know, so it's something different. You know? So it's really something different. So you have a completely new research field where thousands of researchers are actively engaged on trying to make these models more explainable possible. You know. So given said that, how do we see that? The concept obviously is not new to us. I mean, to us as actuaries, because we have always to introduce, explain models and their functioning to more and less technical people, because you might talk to a guy that is really strong in terms of background, in terms of risks, but you might talk with someone that knows nothing about models, So so we are used to that, Obviously, the level of complexity of the explainability of these models went up, definitely went up. There are already some good standards in the profession. So there are some models adopted in terms of explainability that are, I can't say industry standard, okay, because things are still evolved. But we do already have some approaches, some models that are used more often than others, and that this is really nice. Okay, really nice. I can't say that we have already industry standards 100%. No, we don't. You might have still different approaches depending on the country, depending on the regulator. Personally, we as Actuarial Association, we did, I think, 3 years ago, maybe even more, something between 3 years and a half ago, a meeting with the EIOPA where we exposed our idea with respect to explainability, So to avoid, we said that in our opinion, we should aim to have a more standardized approach with respect to explainability. So across countries, so that you are sure that if you are adopting an LLM in Germany or in France or in Italy, you report and you use the same explainability indicators everywhere. So this should simplify the work of the regulators, okay, and should assure to everyone that there are not different standards, So this should simplify life for everyone, for all the players. So this is something that we said, I repeat, something like 3 years ago. Today, personally, I think that we should go again in that direction. It's not easy, I know, but this should help everyone. Obviously, in parallel, you need a real work in terms of profession to try to figure out which are the 2, 3, 4, 5, okay, models, indicators, maybe also report framework that could really help on that. This would be nice to have this, and we are not yet there now.
Well, moving on to the questions of fairness, discrimination, it's something that often comes up in insurance, but AI, of course, causes people to have extra concerns. So what role should actuaries play in ensuring that there are ethically sound outcomes, given what we've been saying about explainability and AI in the mix?
So, I said before with respect to the code of conduct guidelines, so discrimination, fairness are subjected that we as actuaries, we are discussing since tens of years. So it's there is the always ongoing discussion about discrimination, so statistical discrimination, legal discrimination, social discrimination, and this is a very long-standing discussion where someone is saying, but we are statistically discriminate people, so this should be allowed, people that said, but from a legal perspective, it's different. So this is not something new, okay? It's new, the fact that now is arising from a different set of models, models that are maybe more complex to be understood. Okay, so in my opinion, the fairness and discrimination discussion really comes back to the explainability and the level of understanding that we have of the AI models. In terms of new, does not really bring much, because we as actuaries, in my opinion, we have explored and discussed this subject in such a deep way that in the end, I don't really see much new coming out, from that. Because where is the discrimination? Where could be the discrimination? Where could be the absence, the lack of fairness? In the data that you use, so erasing from the data, because in some data you have some missing stuffs, because in the data you have a preeminence of certain categories, certain people, certain features, and not others. It could be in the model, how the model behaves, and receives, this data. It could be in how people are using and interpreting these models. So these three aspects have been very, very deeply explored by us as actuaries. Now we are applying these two different models that are definitely more complex with respect to the usual one, but I don't see really much new coming from this in terms of discussion. In my opinion, we should really heavily leverage the experience that we have as actuaries, to deal with that in the, from the AI perspective. That's the point.
Well, a final question then, just looking at barriers and looking ahead. So what are the main barriers as you currently might see them in preventing wider adoption of AI in pricing, reserving, or capital modeling? And then looking ahead, what do you think will change and what would success look like for AAE's work in AI in the next 5 years?
Also, that it's a $1 million question, Jennifer. But obviously, so I will try to answer, in these few minutes that we have. So as I see it, there are different type of barriers that could make the adoption more difficult, slower, in some cases not possible. So obviously keeping in mind the regulation, so the AI Act. So we know that the AI Act is categorizing some models for the life and health business. Formally speaking, the AI Act as high risk. Keeping in mind the regulation. Let's focus on other, obviously this does not mean that it's not doing, it's not making impossible the adoption because of this. No, this is just, I want just to frame the legal framework. So from infrastructure and I would say IT perspective, there are the usual barriers that we had 10 years ago, 5 years ago. So when 5 years ago I was trying to convince people to adopt different models that were not the LLMs or advanced AI models to approach the pricing, the barriers that people had were the internal barriers that are IT barriers. So there are, in the insurance world, we have very old IT. In many cases, you have really old IT architecture that are not making easy the link between different sections, different departments. You have many silos. You have a very fragmented architecture of the department from an IT perspective, and this is not really simplifying anything, because if the AI definitely gives you a push, making things faster, you always have the barrier, you have always the wall of, okay, but I need to arrive to that data. The new data that you are producing in a very quick way needs to arrive as well quick to other places, But if you have silos, barriers, architectural silos, how do you do that? So this is one barrier for sure. The second is it's the mindset. You have to, for sure, you have to change the mindset. If you think about only the new risks that AI brought to insurance companies, if you upload a PDF in your chatbot, it might be Copilot, whoever it is, in that PDF you might have a virus, that might cause issues to the entire company. This is an issue that before basically you didn't have, you know. So you need to change the mindset. Investing in technology is for sure important, but investing on the education, you know, investing on people in terms of how to use AI, it's as well important, because if you have the car but you don't know how to really guide how to use it, what do you do? So and at the moment I do see a lot of investment in trying to adopt the AI, but not as much in the education and the of people. You can say actors, but not only actors. You know, there would be we need a big investment, because you need a change in the mindset. You need a change in how do you do things, and changing the everyday work of people. It's something really, really, really different, really different, and something really difficult.
And are you optimistic? Change is hard. No one likes change, but looking ahead, what would be success?
Now, if you ask me, I'm absolutely optimistic. As you know, there is no day that I tell to myself, I could have done more, because the perception that the AI gives you is that you can expand what you understand, what you would have understood maybe in 2 weeks. Now you need 2 hours. What you would have done in maybe 2 days, 1 week, now you make it in 1 day. So in my opinion, as I see it, I'm absolutely optimistic, you know, with respect to AI, but you need to take it as proactively, you know, not just to do things in a faster way, in a quicker way. It's an activator, the AI, as I see it, you know, and you need to leverage it in that way, not in the passive way. If you leverage it passively, then maybe you are really, you know, there you have a risk. You have a risk that you could really be replaced by it in 1 to 2 years. But if you use it actively, you know, not lagging behind, I don't think that you could really ever be replaced by it. You know, that's the point. We will see. We will see in 5, 10 years. You know, maybe even earlier. No, maybe in 2 years. But you know, that's my view today.
Well, thank you very much. And I think that is a great place to leave it for today. Thank you very much for joining us, Claudio. And thank you, the viewer, for watching.
Now, you're welcome. Thank you for this occasion, this interview.